All you can eat buffet workers, what are your horror stories? College friend worked at a Chinese buffet. He said they caught a regular dipping his pizza in the wonton soup bowl, like, in the queue and not at his table, and eating it. Bite, dip, bite, dip, bite, dip. After the 4th time in a month he did it, management finally kicked him out. Not a horror story, just funny. I worked at Wendy's when they had salad bars. You could get a single serving bowl. They used to serve eaten chili in styrofoam bowls, and the large doubled as a chili bowl, or all you can eat platters. The taco salad bottom plate. On a slow afternoon, this guy came in and got a single serving bowl. After a few minutes, our manager motioned to me and the sandwich guy to discreetly take a look at the salad he was making. The guy had filled the bowl with salad, then made a ring of overlapping cucumber slices to extend the lip of the bowl upwards. He filled that with salad, then added another ring. It took several minutes to build this thing, but by the time he'd finished, he had a tower of salad well over a foot tall. WTH, multiple rings of cucumber slices containing it. That salad was an engineering marvel. He carefully carried it back to his table, sat down, then looked up guiltily as our manager walked out at him. The manager handed him a free item coupon and said, "That is the most impressive salad I have ever seen. Your next one is on me." I had a co-worker that briefly managed a Ryan's buffet. He said that it was fairly common for people to gorge themselves, then purge in the restroom and start eating again so that they could get their money's worth. At one point I worked for a pizza place that used to have a day buffet that I would make pizzas for. One time 2 huge dudes come in the moment we opened for the buffet. The manager on duty dropped the first 2 pizzas down on the buffet, turned to grab the next 2, turned back and both pizzas were gone. A few minutes later both dudes walk back up and each take an entire pizza again and walk back to continue eating. They proceeded to do this over and over, grabbing an entire pizza each for themselves for the entire 3 hours we were offering the buffet. Was one hell of a day. Edit. With all the replies, haha. Big as in morbidly obese and Pizza Hut 2011 with regular dough, not thin, medium pizzas, 12 inches roughly 30 centimeters diameter, size pizzas. Picked up some fish and chips recently. Saw they had all you can eat on Wednesdays. So I asked what is the most that someone. 18 pieces of fish and 3 plates. She held up this huge platter of fries. Every dart single, Wednesday. So he eats that exact order every week? Yes. And he goes to a different aisle you can eat every day of the week. He got banned from the Chinese place down the road. I worked at a Ruby Tuesday in Center City, Philly, first floor of the Liberty Place building. I had a couple that would come in about twice a week that requested me. They would gorge themselves at the salad bar for about an hour, ask for large glasses of water with no ice. Then both would take the water into the bathroom. They would come out a few minutes later with empty glasses, ask for the check and leave. I finally put it together that they were bulimic after I walked in the women's bathroom and it smelled like vomit. Very polite folks and tipped well though. Obligatory, not a buffet worker, just a witness. We were waiting in line for the soft serve machine at Golden Corral. The woman in front of us gets up to the machine and awkwardly jerks the handle around in an attempt to get at the sweet ice cream within. She's pushing, pulling, twisting, doing literally everything but turning it to the right, which would have dispensed the ice cream. She's really perplexed by this. So she takes the next logical step, of course, which is to wrap her lips around the spout, form a seal on it with her mouth and start trying to suck it right out of the tap. One of the workers sees this and looks on in disgust before he unplugs the machine. On the way out, we see that he put an out of order sign on it. So thankfully they didn't keep serving it after that whole incident. I was once at an old country buffet, waiting patiently to get some mac and cheese. The kid in front of me plied his plate high, and then started tapping the serving spoon to get all of the chessy goodness free from the confines of the spoon. Once he was satisfied with his handiwork, he licked the spoon clean. I didn't have any mac and cheese, and haven't been back since. There was a fairly expensive restaurant in Dallas in the 80s called Southern Kitchen. About $25 per person back then with food served to the table. Really good stuff. They were famous for cinnamon rolls. The owner said he'd seen many, Many women ruin expensive purses hiding those rolls. Man, I miss that place. I worked at a pizza buffet for 2 years during college. I have a number of stories, but the one that I will always remember is the guy who got super upset that we wouldn't make more dessert pizza when we were half an hour past closing time. This guy comes in with his presumed wife and 2 children around 8:30. We close at 9. Nothing out of the ordinary happens until 9 rolls around. It was still commonplace for people to be finishing up and eating what pizza was still left. I was doing the dishes and taking the empty dishes back from the buffet, and I see this guy, arms crossed and staring at me as I take the empty dessert pizza dish. He says something to the effect of, "When's the next one coming out?" I never got any. I let him know that we close at 9 and we can't really make anything past then because the oven gets shut off. Luckily the manager overheard this and stepped in to back me up, and I quickly scamper off to the back to continue the dishes. He seemed pissed, but it wasn't unheard of. As being a cheap pizza buffet, you don't exactly bring in the most affluent of folks. About 5 minutes later, as I'm finishing up the plates, the same manager comes barreling through the back door. Out of breath, he grabs 2 of the long wooden pizza pushers and says, "Come with me." I have no idea what's going on, but I grab the pusher and follow him out the door. I learned later on that he started flipping out, throwing the register and a fishbowl. He grabbed a broom and swung that around, hitting the girl behind the counter. This bit we caught on camera. As I exit from the back, this guy is screaming and ranting unintelligibly. He was just asking for a fight. He walked up to the manager, got all up in his face and kinda choke pushed him back. He came at me next and I was really close to taking a swing at his knees or something, but the other manager had quickly gotten back up and he resumed harassing him. After about 2 minutes of tiptoeing around a brawl, and his wife presumably screaming for him to get back in the car, he eventually gets in and they drive off. I won't forget the glossed over look in his eyes as he came after me. Freaks me out to this day. Went as a customer to a Golden Corral. I'm walking to the chocolate fountain and 3 little girls step in front of me, and all 3 of them just go hands deep in the fountain. The family was the first table by the fountain and all they did was laugh about how cute it was. Employees turned it off immediately. Pickle boy. There was this man who used to come into our restaurant who clearly wasn't all there in the head. He was functional but very weird. As the months progressed, he got way weirder. He started wearing women's underwear over his clothes, even going so far as to stuff his bra. Picture a 6 feet 2 inches 250 pounds dude with a baby face wearing silky underpants and a lace bra over ratty jeans and a stained Hawaiian shirt. That's our guy. He went from being able to hold a sort of normal conversation to just spouting conspiracy theory word salad. But the weirdest thing was his change of eating habits. He used to eat a variety of our soup, salad, baked potato options from our buffet, but as his mental health deteriorated, so did his desire for variety, I guess. By the time his weirdness devolved to aggression and we had to 86 him, he was coming in for 2 things, pickles and ranch dressing. He'd pile as many pickle slices as he could onto his plate, then put so much ranch on them the dressing and pickle juice would be running all over the tray. He'd eat it all, and his face would be covered in ranch and pickle bits. Then he'd drink water straight from the pitcher he inevitably stole from the wait station, sliming it with pickle ranch slobber. Never a dull moment with that dude around. Pickle boy, wherever you are today, I really hope you got the help you so desperately needed, but I was not sorry to see you go. Eater. For those who are asking about the term 86, on this case it means we kicked him out permanently. I managed a buffet in a casino in Reno for a few months. Had this family come in. Mom, dad, 2 little kids. I get called over to the table because the mom had thrown up on her plate table and wanted us to take it away and clean it up. I asked if she was okay, and she said she always throws up when she eats cheese. She had gotten herself an enchilada. It was Mexican theme night. WTF lady, enchiladas pretty much always have cheese. I told her I would have to call janitorial because none of my staff was trained to handle biohazards. She didn't understand why I couldn't just take it. Janitorial came in and couldn't clean up because she refused to move from the table. So janitorial left. She calls me back over and starts yelling at me. Dad starts yelling too. Apparently she wanted to keep eating after throwing up, which I thought was really gross. I had them sit at another table so they could all keep eating. Janitorial came back and cleaned the other table. Finally they go to leave and decide to make a huge scene in front of the whole restaurant and demand their money back. I refuse. Dad gets in my face and starts shouting that I'm just a racist white bitch and his wife makes loads more money than I do. I call security and they storm out, hurling pictures off the wall and shattering them on the floor. And Dad also picked up a vase and broke it. The two kids are running around and banging on the walls. Security finally shows up after they ran off. I have to do a report, and they were put on the 86 list. I ducking hate people. My parents owned an all-you-can-eat buffet and I was there every day of my life from 4-14. My favorite horror story is when a couple came in to eat. Obviously, they love-eared the crab legs and every time my mom puts them out, they took it all. Also, just a reminder, crab legs are expensive. Forget the other customers. They just took it and ate it all. So they're there for maybe 2 hours now and it's getting dark. They've eaten through at least a week's stock of crab legs and my mom finally decides it's enough. She stops putting it out in the buffet and brings individual plates to the customers who wanted it but couldn't get any due to this couple. Understandably, the couple is angry. They literally flipped the chairs at their table, flipped their plates, bowls, cups, etc. and completely trashed their area. Food was all over the floor, table, chairs. Sticky soda was dripping into the carpet. They left in a hurry, but someone caught their license plate. We called the cops and I think they said they charged them with something. I can't remember the aftermath details clearly, because I was probably 8 or 9 years old, 20 now. I just remember looking at the mess and feeling really angry that my sister and I had to clean it up with our mom. It was a family run business, so we didn't have much help. Anyways, that's my horror story. The end. Edit. Typos cause I was on mobile. I worked as a server at a Chinese buffet and 4 things came to mind instantly. 1. A middle-aged woman puked on her table and blamed it on giving herself the wrong insulin dose. The 4 mountains of food she destroyed probably contributed to. Profusely apologized and tipped me $1. 2. I tried to pick up a dirty plate off a table that had a big pool of hibachi sauce grease on it. The customer stopped me and said that's the best part, then proceeded to drink the sauce like it was the milk after a bowl of cereal. 3. A young mother complained to me because the crab meat and cheese that we serve on the buffet made her child sick and they threw up. Her child was an infant, not even a year old. I'm no child care expert but baked artificial crab meat and mozzarella can't be good for a baby. 4. The restaurant was raided by ICE one morning shortly before opening. The entire back of the house and one of our managers were deported. Back of the house was 1/2 Chinese and 1/2 Latin American. Not an employee, but I was standing behind a woman at hometown buffet. She was getting some lasagna or something. Basically a really cheesy pasta that when you lift the serving utensil, a lot of cheese hangs on. I witnessed her lift her pasta, twirl all the excess cheese that was connected around her index finger, and there was a lot, clip it off with her thumbnail, and then fling it back into the pasta. I knew I shouldn't have been at hometown buffet in the first place, but this solidified my stance to never go back. Buffet where I live got shut down for serving coyote meat and labeling it as other meats. At one point myself and 2 other family members worked at a Golden Corral, each in different sections, because small towns don't have a lot of job options for high school college kids. I worked in the bakery, which was surprisingly low in horror stories other than the chaos that remained after a large group of children came through. My brother worked the steak station. He got these regulars that would tip him pretty well if he would prepare blue steaks for them. The very idea of ordering blue steaks from a buffet makes me gag. My cousin worked the salad bar. Management would require her to keep seafood items on the bar for long after the point where they'd be safe to consume. I think the record was chilled shrimp from Mother's Day that stayed for over a week and a half. They finally caved and let her toss them when a customer complained about the smell. Not an employee, but our local Golden Corral shut down because the cooks were too busy ducking the underage servers and selling heroin. Not a buffet, but I worked at a pizza parlor that offered a lunch buffet of endless pizza. The lunch ran from 11 AM 3 PM. This gentleman comes in, I think he was homeless. He serves up a sky-high plate of pizza and just goes to town. He stayed from the beginning to the very end to make sure he got his money's worth. Well, his body didn't appreciate being stuffed like a pinata of pizza. He got up, waddled fast to the bathroom, and next thing I know I'm being told he had liquid trailing behind him to the bathroom and inside the bathroom. I was informed by my boss about the incident. I told him I was just heading out for a break. I was not about to clean that up. Not a worker, but I once saw a grown man have a childlike meltdown over the fact that he showed up to Soup Plantation too late and missed out on the biscuits and gravy. My first job was as a dishwasher in an all-you-can-eat fried catfish buffet. People are animals, especially the ones that get far more food off the buffet than they can eat. Then they take the leftovers and pile them on a plate or tray, cover in ketchup and tartar sauce, then pour their iced tea over the top of all that. A lot of people did that, got at least 2 plates like that a night. Not an employee, but a customer. A long time ago, my mom and I picked up a friend of hers and we went to a local Chinese food buffet. This place had a thing where you could get a pound of food for $5 in a takeout container instead of sitting and eating at the restaurant if you want. So that was our plan. The 3 of us were browsing around the buffet line with our takeout containers, adding what we wanted to them. And then I noticed my mom's friend doing something ducking disgusting. He was eating a chicken wing, like, right in front of the buffet line, hiding his face behind his takeout container. And then he took the chicken bone and put it back in the buffet tray. I walked over to my mom and told her what he was doing. And at first she thought I was joking. So she walked over towards him, and now he was standing there eating a slice of watermelon right off the buffet, and then putting the rind back in the tray. So my mom is like, "What the duck are you doing?" And he's like, "Don't worry, I do this all the time. They never notice." So of course both me and mom are panicking, worried that they're gonna call the cops or something because of this disfit. We basically pretended to not know him and continued to fill up our containers the right way. After a couple minutes, one of the employees walks up to my mom and tells her that they noticed what the guy was doing. They noticed that we were also uncomfortable about it and didn't intend to blame us. But they warned her that if she doesn't get him to pay for the food in his container and leave immediately, they'll be calling the police. So of course mom tells him that we need to go now. And he just brushes it off like, "I don't care. They're not gonna do anything." Well, me and mom walked up to the front, paid for our containers, apologized, and walked out and left him in there. A minute later, you can see and hear him shouting with the staff. He throws his container on the ground and food splatters everywhere. He storms out, shouting insults as he leaves, and of course gives them, "Oh, I'm never coming back." To which they reply, "You're not allowed in here no more. We'll call the cops." So we're standing out by the car, waiting for him. Of course, we yell at him for being a piece of it. We get in the car, and the next thing you know, this motherfucker starts pulling chicken wings and Chinese donuts out of his ducking pockets and eating them. We dropped him off at home and never spoke to him again. Not mine, but I had a buddy who was 400 plus LBS, and the dude could put away some food. He went to a casino buffet that was one of the higher end ones that had crab legs and steak. On about his 4th or 5th plate stacked full of crab legs, the manager came out and gave him $250 in free slot plate to leave the buffet. Edit. So I'll link this to my buddy who pointed out that there were 2 other dudes there and none of them was under 300 pounds. They killed a metric duck ton of food between them and he was putting them to shame. The buffet was higher end, so it was $50 a person. But they easily all ate probably 3-4 times that, and he ate probably 8-10 times that worth in food. He then went on win just over $100 with that free slot play as well. If you can't beat the casinos at the games, beat him at the bar or buffet. A woman came in with 2 of her kids and had a pretty regular meal. You pay when you leave at our place, and she decided to sneak out with her younger daughter before paying, leaving her underage son alone at the table. We caught on pretty quick and sent someone after her, who found her in her car in the parking garage, waiting for her son to come as well. She refused to come back in and pay, so we had to keep her son hostage until the police came to handle the situation. What some people will do to their kids, I swear. Edit. Forgot to mention we also found out from her son that she stole one of the manager's keycards and they would regularly come into the hotel and use the card to go swimming in the top floor pool. Smart. I'll give her that. But still. Not a worker, but I went to hometown buffet and the kid in front of me was slightly shorter than the buffet bar but had his hands in the yellow jello, just massaging it. Then his mom came by and snatched him away but didn't say anything while a guy came and made himself a bowl of jello. 10 years old me was too appalled to say anything. I haven't eaten jello since then. Not a worker but I was at a Chinese buffet with a hot pot option that you had to pay extra for. There was a separate section with the stuff for that which was raw. This guy loaded up his plate with all this raw stuff and was eating it, including dangerous raw stuff like shrimp. I think he may have been slightly intellectually disabled. The Chinese staff had to come over and inform him that he was eating the wrong things and try to explain it to him. He got really embarrassed and said that he did not understand how it worked. Between the Chinese staff with their limited English and this poor guy who was not capable of really understanding what he had done wrong, it was one of those awkward moments in a life that you cannot forget no matter how much you try. The professor of my college microbiology class was also a director at the state health department in charge of inspecting restaurants. The first thing she told us on day one was never ever eat at an all-you-can-eat buffet. I was just a witness but I saw how a woman came in with about 5 kids and she made them all sit at a table while she got food. Even if they seemed old enough to get it themselves. She just grabbed 2 trays, placed 3 plates on both of them and literally poured all the chicken nuggets on one plate so it was a huge mountain. She did the same to 5 other dishes and left 5 pans that were full or almost full before she came empty. Needless to say people were pissed. Especially when she did it multiple times again with other dishes and would often glare at people if she saw them taking food from dishes she probably wanted. Not an employee, but I witnessed a marvelous thing. Sitting in a small town Chinese buffet, 3 big dudes, not obese but farm built big, come in. These guys proceed to just clean house. Plate after plate after plate. They weren't wasteful. They ate everything they took. They were very polite to the staff and other customers, but I bet each man ate a dozen plates, each stacked high. The cooks were working to keep up. My family and I found ourselves watching this marvelous feat of eating unfold in awe. When they approached the counter to pay, all this eating unfolding in only 45 minutes or so, the manager greeted them at the counter. In his broken English he simply said, "You men, you no pay, but you no come back." The guys gave each other and the manager a "yeah fair enough" look and left. Edit. Thanks for the gold. Internet stranger. Glad so many liked this story. I was a customer, not a worker. My wife and I went to a Sweet Tomatoes for a lunch date. Unlimited salad and soup was always good. One time, I saw a man over by the soups take the serving ladle for one of the weekly specials and take a big slurp from it. Then apparently he didn't like it and spat it back out into the ladle and put the ladle back in the soup. WTF. Dude, I got up immediately and told the nearest staff what I'd seen, and they got right on getting that nearly full pot of soup out of there. I didn't have any more soup that visit. The what ifs were too damn strong, which is a shame, because I love their chunky chicken noodle. I didn't work at an all-you-can-eat, but my sister did. The buffet itself was on the first floor, so you had to take either the stairs or the elevator to your seat. Once there was a lady who was carrying a tray with a whole lot of stuff on it down. Glasses, plates and a whole lot more of junk. My sister asked the lady if she needed any assistance, to which the lady replied, "You assume because I'm fat I need help." My sister didn't react. A few seconds later the lady fell down the stairs. There was blood and food everywhere. Years ago, I worked at an all-you-can-eat country buffet in South Carolina. I was a busboy. One day, I went to a table. It was a mess. As per usual, it looked to be a large family group of families of around 12 people or so. The thing that stuck it in my memory is that whenever they had finished with what they were going to eat, they would scrape their plate and use it again. Scrape their plates onto the floor next to their chairs. So next to each chair, there was a 6-inch to 18-inch pile of chicken bones, crab legs, mashed potatoes, remnants of baked potatoes, etc. Just disgusting. I used to work in an all-you-can-eat buffet. I would usually be the one who cleans up after people once closing hours pass. Essentially I was the de facto janitor of the place. This one time I had to clean the bathrooms after the place closed. No problems in the female bathroom. But when I went into the male restroom, the image was burned into my retina instantly. An old man was lying on the floor, face down in a puddle of muck. Not just any sewage muck, but opaque, black muck. It had the color of motor oil. Smelled awful too, like a mix of fecal matter and rotting durian. Certainly didn't help that the liquid wasn't just smeared all over the floor, but spread across the walls too. There were ducking handprints across the wall. Presumably when the geezer was trying to stand himself up, appeared into the toilet. More of that brown liquid, along with chunks of corny poop. There's also this fluid in your digestion called chyme. It's basically the thing right before food turns into poop. The pulpy acidic liquid with partially digested food in it. I could see scraps of chicken breast and sauce mixed in there with the pulpy chyme. As for the old guy, well, turns out, he didn't merely faint, he actually died. I was in a room with a fresh, decomposing corpse in the stages of alga mortis. He had his pants off. Presumably he had himself to death, but I don't know. Ducker emptied himself like one of those cement mixers you'd see in a cartoon. Except you just replace the cement with a liquid that embodies death itself. Needless to say, capital I, like him, emptied my digestive contents. Just from the opposite end that he did. After that I quit. Duck that place, man. So I work in an asile you can eat using tablets. This is, according to my boss, based on a Japanese kind of restaurant. We serve, mostly, Asian food. From Chinese to Japanese and even some Korean. The premise is that people order their food in rounds and we then bring the food to their table when it is ready. We always warn customers beforehand that, if they leave food behind, because they order too much, they will have to pay extra, depending on what they left behind. We have seen people try the weirdest stuff if it comes to not paying extra. People dumping food in their handbags, to people shoving it in their mouths then go to the toilet and flush it, to putting hair on it and blaming us for it. We see them pull this stuff, etc. And when we actually catch them doing it, they blame us for it and refuse to pay. Some people let it come down to the police to sort it out sometimes. There have been multiple occasions on which they were involved to solve the problem for just $5. I guess some people's greed has no extent. I've always wanted to make a documentary and just tour the country, stopping at every Golden Corral and runs. There I would interview the employees to learn what is the worst thing they have found in the chocolate fountain. I mean, what could be the worst? A shoe? A finger? Maybe a diaper?